My next guest has been a math teacher in a small village in India for 39 years. After he retired, he began teaching underprivileged children for free. And then, after seeing the situation of young families around him, he developed an anti-drug, anti-addiction program that he taught himself to students, taking the bus to over 300 schools to teach children and youth about the subject. It's a gift and an honor to have Rambhai Patel still with us on the line from India, since he also overcame colon cancer in the past few years. His son, Devil Patel, is with us from New Jersey to help with translation, as well as his other son, Bhavin. And Devil is a software engineer at Bloomberg and runs a data science YouTube channel with well over 250,000 subscribers, where he teaches machine learning and programming. Thank you all so much for coming on Changemakers Without Borders.
Thanks for inviting us.
It's great to have you. So, Rambhai, what made you do these programs to teach the children about living an anti-drug life?
Naturally, he got an instinct that rather than just spending time as a senior citizen on like doing nothing, he thought of like, being engaged with this kind of activity where he can help community. And like he believes in one Hindu sect, and one of the saint whom he believed, he said that in your life, when you will get retired, you should help people who are indeed in great need. So that is the main reason that he started like doing this kind of activities.
And what were you seeing in the families around you? What kind of need was there to help them with?
He got a lot of information through newspaper and TV channel, and seeing some incidents and events happen in community that people are suffering a lot. So like many people, they are suffering financially, but when a person is having a like great prosperity, but they are like wasting their life, money, energy, health, everything in like this kind of like drug and addiction stuff. So he decided to help those kind of people, like educating them that anyway you are wasting your energy, life, money, everything.
Did you see a difference between the people who are more financially stable versus the underprivileged people? Was there a difference with the amount of drugs that they used, or was everyone the same no matter how much money you made?
He saw no difference whether person is financially rich or poor. He saw the addiction with the same amount in both kind of classes. And while he was teaching as a teacher throughout his career, 39 years he served in a school as a teacher, he saw many incidents, like so many students used to come to his school, and he saw the families getting affected because of addiction.
So can you tell us a bit about the methods that you used to teach? Like, what did you do in the lectures themselves?
He uses two approaches, like verbally communicating as well as visually communicating. So he's a very good orator, by the way. So when he was a teacher, he used to do a lot of speaking activity. So he uses like nice storytelling to convey his idea effectively to students in a simple language. And then he keeps some visuals. For example, if you consume a lot of tobacco, it can cause tobacco cancer. So he has some visuals with him. But if those visuals are available, if someone can bring those, maybe you can show it right now. So those visuals he would use, and that way people get an idea, when they see the picture, that, okay, if you consume a lot of tobacco, this is what is going to happen. So sometimes it just scares people, but his intention is to pass the message with good intention.
So Rambhai, what were some of the reactions from the children that you remember? How did they react to these pictures?
So the students' reactions was that they were like, when they see the picture, they say like the picture is worth 1,000 words. So they immediately get an understanding that this is what can possibly happen. Let's say if they have a family member who is consuming tobacco or any other form of addiction, so that gives them a very like a visual indication of what might happen to their loved ones. And his usual reaction of students was that, oh, this is a bad thing, we should not be consuming tobacco and other any other form of addiction, and we'll also tell other people who are having addiction to refrain from it.
Okay,
So
so here,
go ahead.
here we have some graphics that
Wow. Okay.
use.
So for the listeners on the line, hold on, bring back that picture.
Okay.
I'd like to describe it. So we're seeing an older man with very deep scars on his cheeks and tubes going out of his nose, I believe, and on his forehead. What is this? What is the ailment? I see it's from cigarettes.
Yeah,
So
it's cigarette.
Is this cancer in the face?
Yes, it's a mouth cancer.
Wow, that's a harrowing picture.
This is also the same mouth cancer.
Wow, this is a even more disturbing picture of a man whose cheeks are super like twice as inflamed as a normal adult cheek, and there's black stuff coming out of his mouth, seemingly uncontrollably. Is there more pictures?
Yes.
भाई थोड़ा दूर से बताओ.
This is
Keep
also
keep it.
This is from alcohol use.
Yes, this is from alcohol and tobacco both.
And what is this thing that's like this almost arm coming out of this man's mouth? Like, is that? That's how it looks like. Like there's a tissue coming out of that mouth.
Yeah. Okay.
I suggest people, if they're curious, to search mouth cancer pictures, and they will see exactly what we're talking about, or also go on the YouTube channel of Changemakers Without Borders. You will see the video. Are there any other pictures?
Yes, we have a lot of pictures. Just a minute. Right. So this picture shows that this person now, because of the cancer, he cannot eat. So he has to eat through his nose. Like, means there is, as you can see, that there is a pipe going into his nose, and he has to consume the liquid diet only, liquid food only.
So he can't ingest anything through his mouth.
No.
Yes, so that's correct. So he cannot ingest anything through his mouth because of tobacco. He probably has mouth cancer, and then because of that, now he's eating liquid through his nose, the pipe going through his nose. And Brian, if you show the other picture, there are some messages also written in the regional language. So Brian, can you show the previous picture? So my father would show that picture in front of the students, and there is a message written in a in a regional language.
Yeah.
So this message is saying addiction is basically the gateway to hell.
Rambhai, what were some stories? Could you share with us one story that you shared?
We have seen some real incidents in the society where in India, there is only one bread earner in the home. So let's say there is a young male earning, bread and butter for the entire family, and that person has parents, etc. But because of addiction, let's say the person dies, then the whole family gets affected financially because they lost their sole bread earner. And also, it is mentally devastating for the parents because parents are alive and they lose the child.
How many kids do you feel that you helped? Like, how many kids did you meet?
Usually the student size is 500 because the schools are bigger in India. So when he gives this lecture, there are students from multiple classes, almost like the entire school attending. So the usual attendance in his session is around 500, and he has done 300 schools so far. So 300 into 500, like 150,000 students total.
Wow. And were there children that came to you personally to tell them about how you helped them through these lectures?
Usually, the students come to my father after getting inspiration from his seminar, and they take an oath. In India, like, people are religious and spiritual, and sometimes if they want to do something, they will usually take an oath. So
Oh,
they
yeah.
will take an oath that, okay, we will convince our loved one who is, going through this addiction problem to not consume it, and we'll try our best. And he has one incident where he goes to a local temple for worship. So one day, two girls came to meet him, and those girls said that after getting inspiration from his seminar, they requested their father, who had a bad alcohol addiction, to give that up. And his father got convinced, because like, your daughter, your loved daughters are making your sincere request. So father was emotionally touched, and he left, he gave up alcohol, and that family is in a much better situation right now. So he has these kind of real stories, where his work has made some impact on the ground.
Wow, that's to save a life is huge, but to go around and talk with so many students, and how I know that Rambhai went and bust all over. He didn't agree to use a private car. He just went and uh, put his own time as a volunteer to talk with these students, and to from what I understand, basically you went and read newspapers to see what were the stories of people who were passing away from these drug addictions, and you brought that material also into your lessons. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep, that is correct.
So you were mentioning that you were talking about like how you were bringing these stories of young men dying needlessly. What were some other powerful stories that you used in your lectures, or was that the main thing that you kept bringing new stories from newspapers?
एक सिगारेट બે ઇંચની સિગારેટ 6 ફૂટના માણસને ઠાઠડીયું હુવા દે.
Okay, so what he's saying is, he will use like small, like almost like a funny quotes to convey his idea in an effective way. See, there is a rhyme, like, je pive daruna batla tene thai motna khatla. So batla and khatla, there is a rhyme to it, right? Rhythm to it. What it means is, if you consume a lot of alcohol, eventually you will sleep on a deathbed. The another saying he was using is, the cigarette is only 2 inch, 3 inch, but it can eventually, you can eventually lie down on the deathbed. Like, the 2 inch cigarette can cause a 6 feet man to lie down on a deathbed. So he would use these kind of uh, funny quotes, almost, when he says that, it will make you laugh, but at the same time, it's very easy to remember these quotes because they're funny and there is a rhyme to it. They're almost like poetic.
Yes.
So that way.
He also collected like a lot of, I think, more than 14 pages statistic, and one of the statistic, it says that one single cigarette can decrease your life by 10 to 12 minutes, right? So like, if you consume a cigarette for a year, right, then it will reduce your life by 1 month and 10 hours, right? So
if you do one cigarette a day for a year, it will reduce.
yeah.
But actually, most people don't stop at one cigarette because it's so addictive. Rambhai, there are a lot of people who who talk also about the use of marijuana. Marijuana is considered maybe a softer drug. It's maybe it has some health benefits. People take it also for pain, as pain medication. They say it's also more natural than taking pharmaceutical drugs. What do you think about the marijuana use in general?
What he's saying is, for medicinal use, maybe it is okay in some extent, just with the doctor's recommendation. But the people who consume it for the pleasure in greater quantities, he has this another quote saying that Je pive charas, tene kadi na lage taras. So charas and taras. So charas means the marijuana. Taras means the thirst. Yeah. So basically, he's saying like whoever consumes marijuana in a greater quantities, like they will not have any thirst, or they will not have any urge to drink water because they will be dead anyway. So how can a dead person drink water?
They will not have any thirst.
Thirst. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually quite a powerful quote there, because if we think about how important water is, then yeah, what you're saying is like you haven't, not only you will be dead, but I think there's also another perspective to that quote that we can look at, which is you have no desire to live. You know, you have, if you don't want to drink water, you don't want to live at some point.
Exactly.
Yes.
So from his point of view, from Rambhai, from your point of view, is marijuana as damaging as other drugs?
વડપણું જોખમ વધારે પીવે ગાંજો થઈ જાય ગાંડો.
The marijuana and other drugs, they're all kind of same. It's not good to have them as a pleasure. If you are using it for a medicinal purpose under doctor's guidance, then it is okay. But if you are using it for pleasure, what he's saying is once you use it once, even in a small quantity, now you have a lot of craving. So that craving becomes it almost hard to stop, and you just keep on increasing your quantity. And he has another quote which is je khai ganjo to ene thai ganpannu jokham. So the marijuana in Gujarati is called ganjo. That's a Gujarati word of the marijuana. And ganjo, if you take the first word ga and jo, ganpannu jokham, so that means you have a risk of becoming mad person.
What is his alternative to drugs?
કોઈ સાથે વાતોચીતો કરે અથવા હરવા ફરવા જાય અથવા લીલી પ્રકૃતિના દર્શન કરે તો.
People can take a pleasure by reading good books, by becoming spiritual, meditating, by become, like prayer is another way to spend time in a good way. Another way is to spend time in nature. Spending time in nature can give you a pleasure. Then spending time with family, so having good social value, spending basically time with your loved ones. These are some of the ways that he thinks people can use to get rid of boredom.
1,000%. Rambhai, how did you feel when you were told by the doctors that you got colon cancer?
અને આખા કુટુંબનો ફેમિલીનો પ્રેમ મળ્યો એટલે મને સારું થઈ ગયું.
What he's saying is when he heard about his diagnosis of colon cancer, the first thought that came to his mind was, I'm going to be all right. And he has a big family. We live in a joint family in India. Actually, we have a big family of 12 people. So he said that my whole family is with me. My God, he's a very religious person. My God is with me. Nothing is going to happen to me. So he kept on telling that to himself, that I will be all right. And because of God's will, he became better.
And do you feel like that's something that people is that missing for some people, a sense of direction, a sort of faith, even optimism? Is that something that's missing, that's causing people to get into drugs? Like, that what you're saying, it maybe is not the typical reaction for a lot of people when they get diagnosed with such a, well, with any cancer.
અને એનામાં આત્મીયતા હોવી જોઈએ.
If people have faith in God or faith in the destiny, they will end up doing okay. And today medical science has advanced so much, so there are effective treatments available. So people need to have faith in the medical science as well as God, or like spirituality. So I think overall from what he's saying is the spiritual dimension of person's personality plays an important role.
With people who are already experiencing a sort of addiction to something, what would you tell them today? How to get out of such an addiction? How to fight that addiction?
પછી આસનથી સમાધિ કે એક સમાધિ ધ્યાન કરે, મેડિટેશન કરે તો એનામાં સારી અસર થાય.
First thing is, a person, when many times people have addiction and they get a lot of craving and they want to leave the addiction, but it's kind of, it becomes very hard because of those strong cravings. So when, let's say if you are smoking cigarette and if you have the craving for smoking cigarette, what he's saying is, first look at your family, look at your loved ones. If you continue with this habit, eventually you will have health issues and your entire family is going to be impacted. So thinking about your beloved is number one technique. Number two is, when you're having that craving, maybe drink some herbal, like in India, there's this thing called amla, which is a gooseberry. So if you drink the gooseberry drink or some green juices, that can help you with those cravings, or eating some fresh fruits. Also meditating or praying, those kind of things can help divert your mind from those craving to somewhere else. And these are some of the techniques he think can be useful.
Wow, but what I'm hearing, the first thing that Rambhai said there was, think about your loved ones, think about your family, and really that message is very powerful. It talks about basically taking responsibility, thinking about what your actions could do. Really, not so much to yourself. It's more of a selfless thing about what your actions will cause in other people's lives. What consequences will your actions create in other people's lives, in your children's life, in your husband or wife's lives? And that's a very powerful thought. And I think that if we have that in our head more, then we would, it would help a lot with maybe with not reaching so much for the alcohol or the other drugs. I think though that one of the issues that we're seeing, especially in the young generation, is more loneliness, especially in the pandemic. Actually, a lot of the people who are in getting into drugs are not necessarily people who have a family, but people who are single. And 70% or like 77% of the people who are overdosing are actually men. Does he have any thoughts on why is it that men are more susceptible to getting into drug addictions and drug overdose?
સમજણ શક્તિ ઓછી હોવાના કારણે છે. બીજું એમને એમ કે કુટુંબની બહુ પરવા પડી નથી, ફેમિલીની પરવા પડી નથી.
There are a couple of reasons he believes why men are more addictive than women. One is the profession. There are, let's say, truck drivers, like even pilots, like the people who are in a stressful occupation, they tend to be male. And if you're a truck driver, let's say driving truck for 12 hours, 15 hours, to get a relief, some mental relief, you might consume alcohol or, like cigarette, tobacco, whatever. So it's like the occupational thing. Number two reason he thinks is that generally women are more wiser than men. In general, that's his belief, that women are more wiser than men. I think what he means probably is wiser as well as responsible. When you have a family, let's say husband, wife, 2-3 kids in the family, woman, the mother, will be more accountable, more responsible, whereas man might not be as responsible or accountable as woman. So that's why woman will not go down that path too much. Third reason is he believes the company or the friends, usually the male friend circle will be such that they want to venture out, they want to do adventurous things, and they might experiment with drugs or tobacco, things like that. And once you start trying those, eventually you will go down the rabbit hole and you will not be able to come out. The fourth reason is he believes is in general, because of the personality, male female personality, male are less spiritual as well compared to women, and that having that void in your spirituality dimension also contributes to men becoming more addictive than women.
By the way, Devil, I have to say you have a great memory. Good job.
Thank you.
um, yeah, those are really I feel very deep reasons, and I see how much he's thought about this issue. I think maybe another possible reason is that men tend to have higher incomes, and meaning that they have more money means that they could also buy more drugs, also more
Yes.
more expensive drugs like cocaine is very expensive.
Right. So what he's saying is, yes, he agrees with your point that if you have a higher income, you have more scope of spending your money. And because of that, sometimes, because of higher income, you might not be mentally as strong because you can just spend easily, you have very easy medium of trying new things. So you might not become mentally that is very strong that, okay, I should not be going down this route, because you have money, you have means to spend money on those different experiments. Also, I believe in like countries like India, for example, where he did most of his work, there even 70% of families today, male earns the main income from the home. Women are mainly housewives taking care of children. And we can go into those issues. I mean, things are changing, but because of social cultural reasons, till date, majority of the families, male is the sole bread earner, and male has all the financial authority. So even if woman wants to, let's say, do something, they don't have those financial means.
Mhm.
So that could also be the reason.
Rambhai, tell us a bit about like what kind of child were you growing up? Like, did you, I don't know, study a lot? Were you working on a farm? Were you with a lot of people, or more going for walks on your own?
મજૂરી કરવા જતા હતા એટલે અમને કોઈ પણ પ્રકારનું વ્યસન લાગ્યું નહીં કારણ કે પૈસા હાથમાં હોય વ્યસન આવે ને બરોબર ત્યાર પછી
Just to summarize, he grew up in a poor family. So when he was studying, he used to go to his school by walk. So when he was in B.Ed, when he was taking his teacher's training, he would walk 12 kilometers one way because he did not have money to even afford the transportation cost through even a bus. But good thing that he got out of it, out of that walks was the walks were in nature, full of greenery. So he developed a deep sense of appreciation for the nature during his walks. Also, when he started working as a teacher, for first 3 to 4 years, he walked to his school, which was 4 kilometers away from his home. So 4 kilometers one way he would walk, even after he started working. As a child, he worked in farms, and they were living under in a very like with a poor family background. They were so poor, like sometimes they did not even have money for like 2 times meal. So it was that kind of poverty. And because of that, one good thing was that happened was they did not have money. So they would not have money to buy cigarette or alcohol. So the poor financial condition kind of acted as a blessing in disguise, where they did not have any means to try out any of those tobacco and alcohol, etc. So he worked as in a farm as a child, did his studied, and he walked a lot. Also, he had only 2 pair of clothes most of his life. Even today, yesterday, when I was talking with him on phone, I think last 4 or 5 years he has not bought any pair of clothes, because the pair of clothes that he has, the shirt that he's wearing right now, that he doesn't buy from a superstore. He buys a cloth and gives that to a local tailor who lives in the same village. So the tailor will, prepare clothes for him. So it's like a eco-friendly. It helps sustain local businesses as well, and at the same time, very minimalistic lifestyle. I was surprised when I was talking with him on phone. I'm like, okay, I'm seeing the same shirt, and he's like, okay, last few years he has not bought even a single pair of clothes because all the pair of clothes that he has from long time back, they're still in a good condition. So he's like, okay, why should I buy the new ones?
And he never eats food in restaurant. He never has like this junk food. He's like pure. He loves
Drinks, કોઈ ઠંડા પીણા પીધા નથી.
Okay.
ઠંડા પીણા નહીં, હોટલની ચા નહીં.
So he never consumes like any soft drink or junk food or anything outside home.
And yeah, and he eats all organic, right? I mean, is that a norm in India that you eat organic or not so much?
Not so much.
It is not so much of a norm actually, but this goes back to his upbringing. He worked in a farm. So we also, by the way, we also have a farm actually. So right now the place where he's living, we have a farm.
Oh, nice.
So many times we get fresh produce from the farm. And also the society that we live in, all our neighbors and everyone, majority of them are farmers. And it's a tradition in India that farmers will exchange things, so if we are growing grains, and if our neighbor farmer is growing vegetables, that person will give us vegetables, we give him grains, like no trade, no money, just for free. We exchange, almost like a barter system.
Yeah.
So that way, accessibility of fresh, like organic produce is very much high there, the place where he's living right now. Unfortunately, most of the metro cities in India is becoming all like it's very hard to get organic vegetables and organic fruits. But luckily, he still lives in a very small, like remote village where you have easy access of these things.
So I'm guessing, if you can translate for him this, that I'm guessing that we were able to raise the level, I guess the level of poverty today. So we're in a better situation across, like globally, in matter of like people getting better access to healthcare, more access to food. We've become better in that. But one thing is, basically what's happening is he was seeing that even the poor people, as we can say, are having access to drugs today. Right. And that's maybe part of also in the rise of wealth. People are less poor than they were 50 years ago. So what is causing them to go to the drug route? Why are they starting to take drugs? Is it like the idea of like the farm, for example, farming, is the hard work very depressing? What is it?
There are multiple reasons. Number one reason is there is a misbelief or the wrong perception that if you are working in a farm or doing any kind of like intense activity, if you take drugs or like tobacco, it will boost up your capacity, it will give you more energy to do that hard work, which is a misconception. But that misconception is widespread. So that is one reason that even people who don't have means, even they also somehow go that route. Another reason is lack of education, and that's where his whole program is centered on. Lack of education. People might think, oh, my friend, everyone is consuming tobacco, nothing is going to happen to me, and that's one of the reasons why he goes to schools and shows that picture that no, like, look, this might happen to you. So lack of education, some misbeliefs that drugs and tobacco will boost up your power. Third thing is, he has mentioned this all before as well, lack of spirituality.
Yeah.
And bad companies, like.
So a follow-up question to that, like, who, from his point of view, who's at risk to start using drugs in our modern era? Like, what are the main factors that push people towards that? Like, is it pain, like physical pain? Is it loneliness, emotional pain and depression, peer pressure, other people telling you, this is the greatest thing, you need to try it, pressuring you to try it, be a part of the gang? Like, is it a lack of confidence, issues with your, body image? Like, there's a list. Like, also with frustration in getting money, getting a job, professional frustration.
So just to summarize, he's saying lonely life could be one of the strong reasons, because if you're living lonely, there is no one to tell you that you are doing a wrong thing. There are no people in your home whom you feel emotionally attached and with whom you feel responsible, that if something happens to my health, these are the people who will get impacted. If you're living lonely, you don't have that, emotional bonding, so that you feel responsible. Another reason is lack of education. Definitely, people don't realize. And when I say education, not like, I don't think he means the college degree, whatever. You need to have that sense that, okay, this is the impact, this is the life I will have if I continue down this path. Sometimes if you look at those visuals, I mean, if you show it to anyone, I think the person who is having this tobacco or alcohol addiction, that person would think twice. Because if you're not seeing those, then you don't get an idea. Another thing I think Boyan he mentioned was lack of, again, he's a very spiritual person, so he believes strongly that lacking that spiritual dimension is also one of the big factors. Boyan, did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered almost everything.
Wow. Yeah, this is those are all very strong points, and it's really, yeah, what you're saying is like the lack of knowledge.
Health is wealth after all. And the example he gives is, if you are having an expensive car, Audi, for example, you would never put kerosene in it. You would always fill it with a premium gasoline. But at the same time, your body is more precious than Audi, but you would easily consume drugs or put garbage things inside. So how bad is that? Like the same person who is having Audi, if you ask him to put kerosene, he will never put it. But the same person, he would put maybe tobacco or alcohol in his body, his or her body.
Yeah.
So that's an irony. He's saying like that's an irony of the society, that you don't, your body is more valuable than your car. So it's like a simple common sense, and people still don't get it.
This kid, let's say, having an average lifespan of 70 years. So this body is worth, like, let's say $2.5 million, right? Because people don't have like any amount, like we have MRP for a product. Like iPhone is like worth $1,100. But what about this body? Since it does not have any ERP, any MRP stick to our head, so people feel like it's free.
Well, it should be priceless, it should be that.
Yeah.
But, or like whatever, that that every one of us is worth more than $1 billion, or whatever it is. It could be priceless, because it's not only the body, it's not the physical body that only matters, it's also what that person can do, how he can help other people around him, just like Rambhai here, how he's an ordinary hero that went and gave from his free time, and also after he retired, so many people waste away when they're, and he also started it before. He was active in being a guide to children, but he didn't stop after he retired. He went and took initiation. What kind of price tag can you put on Rambhai? What kind of price tag can you put on how many children he potentially helped, how many youth, how many fathers and mothers who stopped using drugs, or who stopped a certain abuse? Like, we know that the most dangerous person a woman has in her life is her own life partner. And when we use the drugs, when we use the alcohol, that raises the level of violence and abuse that could happen. So how can you put even a price tag on one person who can have so much influence on so many aspects of so many people's lives?
Well, my only point was, since people do not know their real worth,
Yes,
right?
I
We know
100%
that,
agree on that.
right? So we
Yes.
know that like our body is like our life is priceless versus they don't know the difference between less price, like so it's a price.
So he was.
It
It was metaphoric, basically. So if you cannot put kerosene in a $50,000 car, how can you put marijuana in, let's say, $50 million car, for example? Just so this is my for comparison, mathematical comparison person. But I think Bhavin and my father, they all agree our work, the impact that we can create is priceless. And my father is thankful for all the kind words that you just said to him, and he has no further comment actually.
For sure. And yeah, I agree with you, Bhavin, about what you said, that we don't, and what all of you are saying, that we don't bring that comparison. I was even bringing more into something even more stark, more strong, where it's actually much more than that. It could be priceless, but sometimes it's also hard to understand what does priceless mean. And we can see that how little understanding we have of what is the worth of one life. For many cultures, it's or many in modern society, I don't know if it's so clear, right? Because so many people are misusing the drugs, misusing so many things. Like I can give you some statistics, like on the Government of Canada website, in 2020, there was an approximate 17 deaths per day from drug overdose. And in between October and December of 2020, there was 100% increase in opioid deaths, comparing with the same period of last year of 2020. And there was also an 89% increase of opioid deaths since COVID started.
I'll translate that.
Sure, yeah. And in the US, for example, between September 2019 to September 2020, there have been 90,000 deaths related to overdose, to drug overdose. And it's mainly with fentanyl, because, fentanyl is one of the most highly toxic drugs out there, that it is laced sometimes in marijuana, sometimes in other pharmaceuticals, and other drugs. And that's an unprecedented increase of 55%. That number, 90,000 deaths.
Between
September 2019 and 2020. And in the first 8 months of the pandemic, in the states of Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, and South Carolina, there was an increase of 30% in overdose deaths. So this is some of the most, it's horrific statistics.
So it looks like we need more Rambhai in US and Canada.
Yeah, we need to bring you over.
Yeah, પપ્પા એવું કે તમે અહીંયા આવી જાઓ, કે કામ અહીંયા તમારું ફેલાવા માટે.
So my question to you is, do you think that, well, first, like, why do you think it's happening in the US and Canada?
Going out can definitely help, because when you go out, of course, you're not restricted in your four walls, and you feel more free. So he thinks like going out, having less restriction can be helpful.
Yes.
In terms of reducing the overdose use cases. Another thing he believes can help is good company, basically.
Yeah.
Having a good company, having a company with people who are not taking drugs can be very, very helpful.
Yeah, that's a very good suggestion. In New Jersey, David, where you're living, for the longest time, they're having lockdowns there. They have closed down basically all small businesses and kept open the liquor stores.
Oh my God! Yes.
એ પોતે પણ દારૂ પીતા હોય એટલો પછી પેલાને દારૂ પીવડાવે.
So he's saying is the government official, the people who are making this decision, even they are fools. They don't have wisdom. They themselves are drug addicts. Basically, they consume a lot of alcohol and all that. That's why if policymakers are not the correct people, they will end up in this kind of bad policies.
So uh, we're getting near the end, but I wanted to ask him. I wanted to ask you, Rambhai, what is your thoughts on um, technology addiction? Like, for example, in Japan, there's the hikikimori. It's a certain term they use for people who are addicted to uh, technology, video games, TV. And it's a recognized problem in Japan, also in China. They have programs to help children deal with the technology addiction. What do you think is the damage of the overuse of tech, and like what do you think it's doing to people?
So now we can see that there is no unity in joint family. People, like, physically they are present in a single room, but mentally, like, they are separated, right? They are split. So just because of that, now the family values are gradually start decreasing.
To libraries, put the children in a company of good people. It could be good mentors, maybe good spiritual leaders. If you put children in the company of in this kind of good company, and if they're spending time outside in library, let's say reading books, etc., they will naturally spend less time on cell phones. So that could be one of the effective techniques he believe that people can use uh, to tackle this technology addiction.
Why does he suggest that? What does he see about technology that is damaging? Right? Because we maybe reading on Kindle is the next is just the part of the evolution.
So he's saying consuming good content, reading good book is probably okay, but that has to be also limited because cell phone transmits some kind of waves which can create health issues eventually. So even consuming good content also, he's saying there should be a limit because there are some health issues that you may run into with the overuse of cell phone, because it's always emitting those waves, bad waves onto your body. He's also saying watching bad content, let's say pornography or any sexual or any violence content, so that also video games, like he's mentioning one game which was very popular in India called PUBG. So children were become very, very addicted with that PUBG video game, and they would spend hours and hours. So he's saying limited use is okay, but like watching all those unuseful, like the content which is not useful should definitely be prevented. And going back to books, you can read books on Kindle, but you can always go to library and read the same book. So his point is just have limit on how much in during a day, how much, the almost like a screen time, basically just have the limit on that screen time.
Does he see that the type of addiction that or the time that how he was mentioning, like the kids, for example, that were addicted to that video game, or in general also adults, does he see a similarity between that type of addiction to technology and drug addiction?
He's saying cigarette might even affect only on your body, but technology consumption might affect your mind also. So I think he in a way he's hinting that technology addiction is even bad than, it is even worse than the drug addiction. Cell phone, overuse of cell phone and technology in general is it's similar to drug addiction. It's like you can have marijuana addiction. Similarly, you can have cell phone addiction. That could be like an official addiction, like, okay, this person has a cell phone addiction. And one of the downside is person just keeps on consuming content on the cell phone, and eventually the person becomes lonely. So although the person is living in a family, now they are not interacting with the family members. So you lose that emotional aspect, that human touch, that relationships, you lose all of that. You become more and more lonely. You are living your own virtual world. And sometimes a person can even go mad. If he or she continues down this path, the person would become mad. So he believes it is a very, very bad addiction. And he goes to the extreme and saying that you should just not use cell phone. I know it can be very extreme. It's kind of almost impossible in today's world. But he's saying, okay, if you can't be in a position that, okay, you don't want to use cell phone at all, like him, he doesn't have a cell phone, by the way. He just lives his normal life. He doesn't have any problem. He's living just happy life without a cell phone. In 2021, he doesn't have a cell phone. So he's saying people can live life just as good without cell phone, but let's say for whatever reason you want to use cell phone, just minimize the use, minimize the screen time.
A couple last questions. One is like, Rambhai, you're more than 70 years old, and just a few years ago you passed through colon cancer. What allowed you to persevere and to fight? You were mentioning God's will. Is that really the one thing that allowed you? Like, what made you want to wake up the next morning, and what made you heal?
દેશનું સારું કામ કરીએ તો કોઈ આપણે જે યુવાનો છે.
So what he's saying is there are a couple of factors that contributed to his speedy recovery. The number one factor was, as he's a very religious person, he always said like it was God's will. And the other thing was, it was God's will that through him, by making him a medium, God wants to continue his work of, of spreading awareness on addiction. So he's saying that it was God's will that he wanted him to continue this work. And for that reason, the nature helped him recover faster. It was like a combined will of nature that his good work should continue. And it is his personal wish as well that he wants to continue these programs, seminars in more and more schools. And because of that will, that purpose, he was able to recover. Another factor he always mentioned is the family support. Basically, we live in a joint family, all our brothers. Yeah. Even when I go to India, I go to the same home. I don't have a separate home. So it's a big family, and because of the families, the warmth, the system, the support system, he says he was able to recover fast.
The support system is what many people don't have. It's so rare in many places, even in places that are more old school, you could say. There are many families that actually are not interested in supporting each other, and so I feel that what you have is rare. And the second thing you were mentioning was also the vision that he had to come back and to continue teaching and bringing the awareness of living an anti-drug, no drug life. And Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor and wrote several books on his experiences, wrote that basically the people who survived the Holocaust were those who had a vision, a bigger vision than themselves. Can you ask him if there's any other important question that I didn't ask him that he would like to bring up?
He's saying yes. He doesn't have anything else to say.
Okay. So I asked all the important questions.
Yes, you did a very good job. You covered pretty much all the content.
Well, thank you so much for all of you for being on Changemakers Without Borders. I really feel that what you did was extraordinary with your circumstances, even continuing with continuing after retirement to so many schools, hundreds of schools, and you're going to continue, and you're persevering, and you were able to heal from a really almost debilitating disease. Like they had to cut your innards up, and you had to walk around with a bag for almost a year, and it's something that could really can break some people. But you not only have a vision, you're also executing. You're also taking action and bringing education, important messages to so many young people and to their families. And I really want to thank you. Thank you so much for doing it.
We are very grateful. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. પપ્પા તમારે કશું કેવું છે આ વિડીયોમાં? થેન્ક યુ કહે છે તમારે કશું? He is also saying thank you. And I would like to add one last thing, that since one of the things that my father talked about was family values, so we live in this joint family where me, my brother, my other brother, my father's brother, his two sons, they all live in a single home, single kitchen. If I tell this to people, it's kind of almost hard to believe, right? Like 7 families living together, how is that possible? Aren't there ego clashes? But we have understood the importance of the joint family, and we have seen the benefits outweigh the little ego problems that you have when you're living in a big crowd. And because of that, despite living in US for 13 years, I live in New Jersey, US, 13 years. Me and my wife, we are living alone here. We have not consumed alcohol or drug. We don't like, not consuming alcohol is almost like a big deal here, right? So because when we go
Especially
back
in
to
New
a
Jersey.
family, especially in New Jersey, yeah, it's always like cloudy, gray, and cold. And so because of that system, I feel I'm able to hold onto those values, because when I go back and live in that very strong, connected, like family where everyone loves each other, I feel that I need to continue. It's almost my responsibility to continue these values. So another thing people can learn from this is, I think living together has lot of benefits. Our entire family has seen that benefit, and that is the reason, even being like educated, we have financial means, we can buy 5 homes, we have everything, but still we made a choice, conscious choice. And I think it's a very wise choice one can make. If you have brother, sister, please try to live together, forget all your differences. Ego clashes, they are going to happen, even if with your wife, with your kid, right? They always happen. But if you look at the bigger picture, you will forget all those little problems you have, and you'll be able to reap huge benefits that we have gained being in a joint family together.
Wow, I had shivers when you were talking, and thank you so much for bringing this message as well, Davil, because I can say from a bit of about me that I am also in a very close, very close family. I have 2 brothers. We all play music together. We all play many instruments, and since a very young age, um, we've been creating and we recorded an album of original songs about friendship and family values. And we recorded it when my brother was 6 years old, I was 12, and my older brother was 18 or something. And yeah, like there is no drugs, there's no alcohol, there is only constant growth and development. And you can see the books behind me. We read a lot of books, as I'm sure you guys do. And being in nature, and being with friends in equality, in a way that is building, right? In a way that is not going out to party, but actually creating things. And we also created as a family a nonprofit together where we brought music to other schools that had no music education. So we brought it to thousands of students that did not have access to music, and this helped them. These were low income schools that had families that were also with drugs. So this issue of drugs is very close to me. Of course, it's not part of my family, but I see it in other families, and how it destroys, how it crumbles everything. And the kids actually found a lot of hope and a lot of beauty in playing music, and playing music together with 50 kids is such an amazing experience for them, that it's almost like another family. It's almost like there's another support. There's people listening to me. People are listening to my needs. People are listening to my music. There's a lot of metaphor that is also related to playing and learning how to play music. So that's one thing. But we not only did music in the nonprofit, we also taught kids how to build together, physically, create structures, there's so much to go that we can talk about there. And I think that the main message is to take responsibility, to be a leader, right? Because if you're living with more people, you cannot be a selfish person. You actually have to be a leader
Yes.
to give up on your ego, and to give up on
Yes.
your ego requires a huge amount of leadership.
Exactly. You said it's so right. And we really admire the work, amazing work that you, your brother, your entire family is doing. It's such a remarkable work. I have no words.
Thank you so much to you two and your family. And we should do this again, maybe to hear, maybe in a few years, how Rambhai is continuing with more schools and to get some updates. Yeah, it's really
When he touches his
improving.
1,000 school mark, he's at 312 schools. He's gonna touch 1,000 school mark one day, and we'll probably celebrate that by having another round of discussion.
We should. It sounds like we could talk for so long about so many important subjects. But thank you all so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Namaste.